Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the webinar on Wellesley's plans for the upcoming academic year. My name is Tara Murphy. I'm the Chief Communications Officer, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping matters before we get started. First, we are offering live captioning for this webinar, which you're able to turn on and off by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of your Zoom toolbar. Second, the webinar is going to be recorded and posted on our website. So if for some reason you're having difficulty with technical issues, please know that you will be able to see the full recording later today. We have an hour, roughly an hour today, and we're going to spend the first part of that with our presenters, who will be sharing some highlights from the communication that went out yesterday. We're going to spend the rest of that answering your questions. So you will see on your screen there is a Q&A button. You can type in your questions starting right now, and you can also vote on your question, other people's questions, which will give us a sense of the really important matters that people want to see addressed. And so we will spend the second half of today getting to those. So I want to get started, and I want to start by introducing Joy St. John, our Dean of Admission and Financial Aid, who's going to introduce the presenters and kick today off. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. I see that most folks have arrived into the chat. I just want to reiterate, as I know it took some time for people to get in, that closed captioning is available, and you should see that option at the bottom of your screen. I want to welcome everyone and thank you for taking the time to meet with us today. Students, congratulations on your admission to Wellesley. Again, we are really excited for you to start your Wellesley College careers with us. We've really enjoyed getting to know you more through some of the enrolling student events online this month, and we hope that you're learning more about your future classmates as well. As I have said before, this is an extraordinary time to prepare for college. And we believe that Wellesley is the best environment within which to embark on your new journey of learning, self-expression, community engagement, and leadership. Family and friends joining us today, we want to thank you again for the support you have given and continue to give your students, really the kind of nurturing and guidance that has led them to a community like Wellesley. When we last met with you in late April, President Paula Johnson and Dean Sheila Horton discussed some of the factors the college was considering as we tried to finalize our plans for the coming school year. Yesterday, President Johnson sent an announcement with those final plans to all members of our community, including entering students. The recent communication provided many details about our academic, residential, and health plans for next year, but we wanted to create this additional space and time to highlight some of the most important information from that message and to answer additional questions you may have. Today, President Johnson will provide you with an overview of our approach to health and safety. Provost Andrew Shannon will share a bit about the changes we are making to our academic program as part of the fall plan. And Vice President and Dean of Students, Sheila Horton, will talk about the ways that we are creating and sustaining community for all our students. Helen Wang, our Director of Residence Life and Housing, is also here to help answer questions that may come up about campus housing and the residential experience. And we are joined as well by a few members of the communications and library and technology services teams who are helping us behind the scenes to moderate this webinar. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you find this time today helpful and informative. And now I will hand things over to President Johnson.
Thank you, Dean St. John. And I just want to echo Dean St. John's welcome to Wellesley. Congratulations. We are just so excited to meet all of you and to welcome you to the Wellesley community. You are really part of an extraordinary class who's making history. And, you know, it may not be the history you would have chosen, but it is history nonetheless. And we are, as I said, so excited to welcome you. So I just want to give you an overall sense that our goal throughout Wellesley, but especially in this time of the pandemic, is to provide an excellent and rigorous academic program through both in-person and remote instruction, and to offer each of our students the opportunity for a rich residential experience while also providing for the health and the safety of our community. The leadership, the faculty, and the staff, with student input, have been really working very hard to, with student input, to prepare for your arrival. So just an overall, our key decisions are really based on health and safety. In order to ensure adequate physical distancing, students will live in single rooms. So as was in our communication yesterday, first years and sophomores will be invited to be on campus in the fall, with juniors and seniors on campus in the spring. There will be a number of juniors and seniors who will be with you in the fall, because we will have our resident assistants, our house presidents, and others on campus who really make for a full and rich Wellesley experience. We will also have a rigorous academic program that includes a robust mix of remote and in-person and hybrid classes, and Provost Shannon will talk more about this. And then we have been working very hard to have a reimagined student experience for residential life when on campus, and virtual education and social and recreational programs for all of our students, whether you are on campus or learning remotely throughout the year. I want to give you just a little bit more detail on our multi-layered approach to health and safety. And just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm a physician and was both a professor of medicine and of public health at Harvard prior to coming to Wellesley, and also chaired our entire Department of Health in the city of Boston. So this is an area that, although we have not experienced a pandemic, this is an area where many of the same approaches and techniques that we've used in the world of public health will be brought to bear at Wellesley College. So our first strategy is really around prevention and testing. We will be asking all of our students to do a 2-week self-quarantine before coming to campus. Now you might ask why. That is so that we can be assured that we will have the lowest number of COVID-19 cases coming to campus as possible. We've seen the situation around the country, and we think that with this method that we will begin with ensuring safety by asking our students to do the self-quarantine. When you get here to campus, we'll be doing baseline testing for COVID. This will be done through a test that swabs the anterior nose. And we're very fortunate to be partnering with the Broad Institute, which is one of the world's leading genomic centers, to actually do robust surveillance testing or robust pre-symptomatic testing in our community. So you will have a COVID-19 test on entering the college, and we'll be testing a few times during your first week, and then testing weekly after that. This is to also pick up any cases that might be on campus in our student or faculty or staff population. We'll be having a daily symptom checker in which everyone will be asked to check off a series of symptoms before you're allowed to go to class. We're going to be asking everyone to use face coverings, and hand hygiene will also be very, very important. I already mentioned our regular asymptomatic testing that'll be done once per week. And we will have very important cleaning protocols that are going to be put into place both in our bathrooms, in our dining halls, in our residence halls, and in our classrooms. So again, it's a multi-layered approach to prevention and testing. In terms of the experience, as I mentioned in our last slide, every student will have a single, but you will be assigned into blocks of students, usually somewhere between 4 and 6 students, that will be able to socialize a bit more closely, not without masks, but a bit more closely. We'll be able to dine together, preferably in these early months outside. We will be practicing physical distancing, and we will ask you to not leave to go and travel unless there's permission granted. We're going to ask that you really try not to travel to Boston and to really stay as much as possible on campus and in the surrounding area. The Wellness Office has already developed a robust public health education program that will really be sharing why we're doing and taking these measures and the shared responsibility that all of us have for each other's health. We will have a code of conduct, and of course, Wellesley is well known for our honor code, and our students are really quite versed and really respect that honor code, and we will be putting that into effect. And then last, what happens if you get sick or if you need care? We have a very wonderful partnership with Newton Wellesley Hospital, which is one of the region's premier high-level community teaching hospitals that's part of Partners Healthcare, again, one of the country's premier health systems that's affiliated with Harvard Medical School. With that, we will have the capacity to do testing for anyone who develops symptoms with a very rapid turnaround. We will have the ability to do robust contact tracing if we do have any cases of COVID-19 on campus. And if there are any cases identified, whether through symptomatic testing or whether through our asymptomatic testing, those students will be quickly put into isolation with care and meals being provided, and any of their contacts will be put into quarantine until cleared through testing. As I said, we have a very strong partnership, and we are so fortunate to have Newton Wellesley as a partner, so that if there are any hospitalizations that are needed, whether for COVID or for other reasons, Newton Wellesley, as I said, is a premier hospital. Our Stone Center for Counseling will also be available to students both on campus and for some students, as the law allows, off campus. And I should also say that is true for our health service as well. Telehealth will be available for students who are both living on campus and students who are remote. Our Stone Center is a strong center for counseling and stands ready to serve the needs of our students. So that just gives you a thumbnail of our multi-layered approach to health and safety. And now I'm going to turn it over to Provost Shenin.
Thank you, President Johnson, and welcome everyone. I'm delighted to join you this morning. My name is Andy Shenin. I'm the provost. I'm also a faculty member at the college, and I've been here for 32 years. I don't think that in my 32 years, I have experienced a year like the one that we have ahead of us, but I am filled with optimism that we will get through it together in great shape. The hallmark of a Wellesley education is highly personalized instruction by dedicated expert faculty members and a rich curriculum of more than 1,000 courses that we make available every year. And that full curriculum of more than 1,000 courses will be available to you next year. It indeed will include some new courses that reflect on the experience that we are all going through at the moment, the experience of pandemic. I expect that we will have a number of new courses focusing on understanding the experience from different perspectives within the liberal arts framework. The faculty have reimagined those 1,000 courses to take account of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. So usually we offer those courses in two 13-week semesters. This year we have decided to break them up into 4 7-week terms. Why have we done that? We've done that because we think in the circumstances of pandemic, with all the uncertainty that we will be facing, and especially with many students learning remotely, we think that it is a better structure for productive education to have students taking just 2 courses at one time and instructors just teaching 1 course at one time, rather than the full load. We also think it will allow us to pivot quickly if we need to because of changes in the public health environment. Then what the faculty has done is try to match the courses that we will be offering in person to the students who will be on campus. So as you know from our announcement, in the fall, the students on campus will be primarily first-year students, entering students like yourselves, and sophomores. And other students will be learning remotely or in hybrid forms. So we have structured our curriculum so that the in-person courses that we'll be offering in term 1 and term 2 will be those that are most often taken by first-year students and by sophomores. That doesn't mean that you will have to take in-person courses. We will certainly encourage you to do that. But it does mean that they will be available to you. The faculty that I work with very closely have been working incredibly hard to prepare for next year. We are all preparing the instructional spaces that you will be learning in, making sure that they're safe according to the social distancing protocols that the president just mentioned. Also that they have the right technology to enable communication to be smooth and unhindered by the social distancing protocols. We are working with faculty to develop really excellent remote courses for those students who will be learning remotely. And I should say that even though most of the students on campus in the fall will be first-year students and sophomores, it will be possible for first-year students to study remotely. We recognize that some of you may not be able to come to campus or may not wish to come to campus, and you will have a full curriculum at your disposal also. But finally, we're planning the strategies that will make these intense 7-week courses successful. We know that successful 7-week courses require a very high level of instructor enthusiasm, very clear expectations about the organization of the course, and very frequent check-ins with every student in each of the courses. We know that active learning and connection and community between students, among students in the classes, are recipes for success in this kind of format, whether remote or in person. So we are working hard here on campus to ensure that we provide those forms of instruction. If I could just very briefly touch on a couple of other aspects of our academic program. We are still hoping to have study abroad. That's primarily for juniors and seniors. But we are developing options for study abroad, new options for study abroad in the spring that might be of interest to entering students. In the fourth term, the final term of the year, we are planning immersive language programs in a number of different settings, and our hope is that the public health situation in various parts of the world will have improved by then, and those options will be of interest to you. Our grading policy is the one that we have applied over recent years, so that entering students in your first semester at the college will have shadow grading. I'm sure you've heard about that as part of the admission and entering process. That normal policy will apply. After the first semester, we will be using letter grades in the normal way. We will not have cross-registration for in-person courses at Babson College, Olin College, or MIT in the year ahead, and that's really entirely because of the public health challenges of having students travel from one campus to another. And finally, we will have no varsity competition, athletic competition in the fall. We will revisit that again in the spring and hope that conditions are better by then. If varsity athletes come to campus, as we hope many will, we will definitely be able to support practicing together, training together, but we will not have competition. So that hits some of the highlights. I'm sure that there are many questions that we will look forward to answering. I will now pass along to Dean Sheila Horton.
Thank you. A little bit of technical challenges. Okay, wonderful. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great. Well, let me start by welcoming also all of our first year students. I'm really looking forward to getting to meet you in person. And we know that Wellesley students are quite serious about their academics, but we also know that they're quite serious about their community. And increasingly these past few years, we've developed a vibrant social life on campus. And even under the current public health restrictions, we're working really hard to find a way to maintain safety while also maintaining community. So we've redesigned the residential experience to focus on personal connections while socially distancing. As President Johnson mentioned, students will live in singles, but we know that that roommate connection, that friend group is so important. So those blocks will be your smaller community within the larger community. And we might need to stay 6 feet away from each other, but we want to make sure that you are seen and you are engaged. You know, in student affairs, we have our theme, embrace, engage, empower. And that's what we intend to do with students this year. You've heard of the saying, we are in this together. Well, we really are in this together. You are essentially going to be responsible for keeping the community safe while utilizing all the public health strategies that we will give you, like wearing your mask when you're out of your room, washing your hands, using hand sanitizer, and checking your symptoms. But also recognize that on campus and our remote communities at the same time are going to be connected and engaged. So all of the supports that students have come to expect at Wellesley, like your class deans, your academic advising, religious and spiritual life, counseling, health, intercultural education, they will all still be available, both remote and in person. And our wellness office, along with para and recreation, will offer many stress relieving opportunities remotely so that students can participate together. In fact, our student wellness weekly newsletter is loaded with helpful information. And so even now, over the summer, you can go online and check out all of the helpful resources that are available there. Our academic advising, our tutorial support, accessibility and disability resources will all be available, both in person and remotely, to support all of your academic concerns. And then finally, and this is what I think is most important, in college, you're going to learn so much about the world, and you're going to learn so much about yourself. But in the process of doing that, you also need to have fun. We are depending on our resident assistants and all of the others on campus to help us creatively have fun while also social distancing. And I've heard that our college students have done it. The incoming students, when you think about, many of you didn't have a graduation in person and you had to find creative ways to acknowledge that moment in your life. We expect you will also work with our juniors and seniors who are on campus to create social distancing fun opportunities. And I'll just give you some examples. Even in the spring, some of our students after they left campus had virtual bingo, they had book clubs, they had pen pals, they had many different methods of maintaining connection. Moving forward, we'll probably have remote bigs and littles, and you'll learn more about that when you get here. And vice versa. We expect our clubs and our organizations to function. And as we get guidance about the size of our gatherings, right now the size of gatherings is 10. As the size of gatherings increases, we will adjust accordingly. So that's just a little bit about our student life experience, and we look forward to answering your questions. So I will stop now and I'll turn it over to Dean St. John.
Thank you very much, Dean Horton. So we've been receiving some questions in the chat, and I'm going to ask Director Wang to answer the first question, to ask if you can share some details about the move-in plans for the start of fall semester, and can parents be on campus during the move-in time, and are there specific dates available?
Of course. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Helen Wang, and I am the Director for Housing and Residential Life. And I'm so excited to imagine this campus with all of you here. Just a little bit about our planning for move-in. Of course, we're adjusting and we're trying to craft a plan that best syncs up with the health and safety needs of moving in a very large group of students. So our plan is to not have everyone move in on one day, but move-in will start on August 24th and be staggered over the course of several days. Students will be given a designated time slot, enough time for you to be able to move in with some support from the college. Parents will be able to, one parent will be able to enter the residence hall to help students. And before you even arrive on campus, we are going to send you a ton of information to help navigate your way once you arrive on campus. You should expect to see some virtual tours of the residence hall so you can see what the interiors might look like as you're navigating that space. You should expect to receive some information from us about possible shipping of your belongings and how we can make sure that you can get as many of your things into your spaces before you arrive on that day to minimize the need to bring a lot and to travel into the buildings quite a bit. So those are a couple things to look forward to with the move-in process. We will send you many more details, and we want to be very specific and granular so you know what to expect. What I will say is the move-in experience is going to be great. We're going to make sure that there is life and music and people to welcome you into the residence hall with as much pomp and circumstance as we would expect any first-year move-in. So get ready for a little bit of controlled fun on the day that you come in on that for moving in.
All right, and I think there is a related question, perhaps Director Wang and Dean Horton, you might answer as well, which is what, I think questions around what are the plans to make sure that the campus does not feel too lonely for the students who are on campus.
I'm happy to start. I know that Dean Horton will have some thoughts on this as well. But, you know, we've been thinking a lot about this notion of how can we be together while we have to be distant. And to me, there's a great opportunity to cultivate some strong skill sets around sustaining and building meaningful relationships and having encounters that are about what I would call level 3 conversations, right? So we might be in a place where we push the envelope a bit on how you get to know one another, right? We want to capitalize on the time that you have with each other to really think about the big questions that you sit with, whether they're notions of self or how do we create community, how do we belong in a space while we're being alone together. There are so many opportunities for us to ensure that we're imitating the 11 p.m. pizza in the hallway conversations all the time. We intend to do that through some really great training that we're offering to our RAs and our HPs and our professional staff members to help cultivate meaningful dialogue in really unprecedented times. We also have gotten really creative with the Zoom medium. So we know that there are opportunities for us to have virtual dance parties online, or we can do some really great Zoom sessions that are about life's big questions. So I have so much confidence that this is going to be the kind of year that you're flexing different muscles, and then I hope this will become a memory for everybody that really suggests what we are capable of when we capitalize on what we already have. And remember, students, you come with so much already. You are ready. We're going to build up from all these amazing skill sets and experiences you have to create an amazing experience.
And there's not much more to say after that, except that we're also going to capitalize on the beautiful outdoor campus. So we're starting at the end of August. That gives us lots of time to do some outdoor activities, and we'll really make sure we take advantage of that space to be able to cultivate and build relationships early in the year so that those relationships can be sustained even after the semester is over and into the next semester. Also, during that break between the 2 terms, we are planning for retreat opportunities. We're planning for conference opportunities and lots of different ways in which students can engage when they're not also studying. So we will keep you pretty busy if you're, and there's also going to be plenty of rest time too. So we're going to work with you on that as well. So we look forward to creatively connecting in many different ways.
Thank you. So the next question is really for me. It's a question about when families who applied for financial aid and received financial aid offers, when they might expect their final financial aid offer. So just to clarify, all entering students who applied for financial aid should have received a financial aid notification. If they were awarded some form of need-based aid, then you actually have a very good understanding of what your final financial aid offer will look like. The way that we calculate need-based financial aid at Wellesley is we first determine a parent contribution, then we determine what the student's contribution will be, in addition to any loan or work study expectation. Once we have those 2 aspects of the financial aid offer, we develop a budget. What is the cost of attendance? And the budget is what will be changing for students depending on between semesters, whether you're living on or off campus. But if you look at your original financial aid offer, the parent contribution that you see right now should remain the same. So in terms of the amount you would be expected to pay, regardless of whether the budget includes room and board, depending on the semester, or if for some reason an entering student is not living on campus in the first term, the parent contribution should remain the same even as the budget might change from semester to semester. It's also important to note that in the announcement was also information that the student summer earnings contribution will be replaced with grant. And so when you receive your final financial aid offer, the parent contribution should be comparable to what you saw in your original financial aid offer, but the student contribution will be slightly reduced because it will no longer include a summer earnings expectation. It would still have a loan and work study expectation, and we do expect to have work study jobs available both in person and remotely for the school year. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question. This question is for you, Dean Horton. There was a question if there is a chance that incoming first years will be afforded the opportunity to take advantage of a hotel living option in the spring. Sorry, that's the question. I was, question mark.
Okay, at the moment, we are not planning to have our first years and sophomores to move into the hotels. We really wanted to focus on the hotels for the fall. We're hopeful that the spring, we don't know what the virus is going to do in the spring. We're sort of keeping our options open, and also just developmentally, we think it's better for the juniors and seniors who already have established relationships for a long time to be together in the hotel and in the first semester of the year. So that was sort of the idea behind it. I think we can continue to explore what we want to do, but at the moment, the plan is not to have first years and sophomores in hotels.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is for you, Provost Shannon. When registering for classes, will the students know ahead of time if the classes will be in person, hybrid, or online?
Thank you, Joy. Yes, the answer is you will know. The classes are being designated as in person, or hybrid or online.
Right, that was an easy one. This question is for you, President Johnson. Is the plan for spring semester set in stone? Is there the possibility that more first years and sophomores will be able to be on campus in the spring?
It's a very good question. You know, this pandemic, we don't have a crystal ball at this point. And so although we have dates and plans for the spring, it could change. You know, there are other opportunities that for travel that juniors in particular might take advantage of, which would allow more freshmen or first years and sophomores on campus. So we really are keeping an open mind, monitoring the situation, and really moving forward according to what that situation is. So it is not set in stone at this point.
Okay, and then another more of a health related question for you, President Johnson. Can you please explain what 2 weeks pre-entry quarantining looks like? What does that mean for working parents, students with siblings in school? Should our daughter be quarantined from us?
That's a really good question, and I should have made that clear. This is not a quarantine where you have to stay isolated from every person. What we're really asking is for you to do what we would call a soft quarantine, where you really are being very careful how you move about in your cities or towns, that for every intensive purposes you try to stay at home. Many of you work and can't do that. What we would ask is that if you are working, that you be vigilant about the use of masks and social distancing. This is really a time when we need to, again, try our best to make sure that we have a minimum number of COVID positive students come to campus. And why is this important? It's important because, first of all, in your age group, the most common form that this disease takes is asymptomatic disease, so that many students don't know when they have it and can easily spread it to others. And what we're trying to do is to lower the number of cases that come to camp, students with COVID that come to campus, so that we don't, on the first few days of move-in a way, overwhelm our ability to isolate students, and so that you can start the semester in the most robust way possible, which is in your dorm doing all the activities that Helen and Dean Horton talked about.
Thank you very much. The next question is really more about housing. So for you, Director Wang, is there going to be an option on the housing questionnaire to request a particular person to be in your social block? Some first years have been choosing roommates in their engagement online who are people they'd like to be close to.
Such a great question. And I'm so excited for you all to go into the portal to learn more, our Housing Star Res portal, to learn more about your potential classmates. Yes, absolutely. There will be a way for you to indicate who are the folks that you want to constitute as a block, because we want you to be around people that you feel comfortable with. At the same time, I will caution you that there are many students you have not yet met, and we would love for you to consider opening up your frame of thinking to look at those profiles, and maybe Star Res will tell you you're a 97% match with this person you've never met before, and could they be a new part of your small block group? So yes, there will be an opportunity to indicate that. Our system has an algorithm that tells you, based on the way that you respond to questions, whether or not you may be great block mates. So yes.
Matchmaking via Star Res, it's very exciting. The next question, Dean Horton, how does the college plan on working with student leaders to offer student, engagement with student organizations? What are some plans for its social life on campus?
It's a good question, and I'm so glad that to hear that as one of your concerns. So we do have an Office of Student Involvement, and we have a college government that plans all of the major events on campus. And the Office of Student Involvement works with about 130 clubs and organizations on campus. So once we have a sense of who all our students are that are coming back, I'm quite certain that we'll have many requests for social activities. At the moment, as I said, we do have limitations on the numbers of people who can gather. So we'll be looking for creativity on the part of our students to identify ways in which they can still gather, have fun. So let me just give you some examples of what I've heard. I've heard about a giant movie screen on 7th Green with lots of blankets and students laying out, socially distanced, of course, but with bags of popcorn. I've heard of food trucks coming around campus with different kinds of food items that students can grab and go. I've heard of a DJ on the middle of the campus where students can socially distance, dance, and party. I've heard of smaller gatherings where students are having both in-person and remote connection and conversation about challenging and difficult topics, for example, all of what's going on in our country today, and sharing wisdom and experiences that way. So these are some of the things that I've heard students and staff talking about, and I'm also looking forward to what ideas you will bring to the campus to have social engagement.
You had me at food trucks. Director Wang, this question is for you. If we aren't going to be on campus in the spring, will we have to move all of our luggage furniture back home, or will there be a place to store things?
Great question. The ever-present storage question. Well, the first thing I will start with is I really want to suggest to all families that you really consider packing super light. Okay, so pack for what you need. We want you to be comfortable, but recognize that for the time that you're here, you may not want to bring your skis. So things that are big and bulky, I would consider leaving those at home. With that said, we certainly do have some limited storage for students in between the terms, in between the sessions. And we also have the opportunity to work with some off-campus vendors to do some shipping and storage as well. So we will send you a bevy of options to help make this as smooth as possible for you. When you come to campus for move-in, recognize we will have large moving carts for you to move your things into those spaces as well. So yes, we're thinking about all those things to make sure that this is as smooth as possible.
And if I can mention, if you decide to ship your belongings to us sooner, we can have them in your room waiting for you when you get here.
That's an incentive right there. This question is really for me to address on the frequently asked question page, linked in the initial announcement email. It's mentioned that Wellesley is going to offer an allowance of 50% of the room and board amount to students living off campus and receiving financial aid. Just ask that I elaborate on this, and also will it be available to international students? So just to answer the second question, it will be offered to all students who are who qualified for need-based financial aid. So that would include international students. So as I mentioned before, if you look at your current financial aid offer, you'll see a parent contribution, student contribution, loan and work study expectation, and a budget. And you can see that if you subtract the parent and student contribution pieces from the budget, the remaining amount is the amount that you're being funded in grant aid, right? So for students who are living on campus, the budget will be higher because students will see a full charge for room and board. So for first year students, a full charge for room and board in the fall semester. And so you're receiving grant aid minus your family contribution to cover that full amount. In the spring, instead of eliminating a room and board budget altogether, even though first years would be living off campus, we've decided to maintain a budget so that the total budget is able to account for the fact that there are some expenses that students incur that they need to be successful students related to room and board, even when they're not living in campus housing. So, so the budget will be smaller for spring, but it will factor in expenses for room and board. Those expenses will be less, but they will be factored in. So I hope that answers that question. And Provost Shannon, we'll move on to you. Will we be able to meet with advisors, and will those, assuming first year entering student advisors, will those advisors, I'm assuming faculty advisors they're asking about, and will those advisors be providing advice on how to structure our time at Wellesley given the limitations that may exist in regard to internships and other things such as that?
Thanks so much. That's another great question. Every entering student will have indeed a faculty advisor. And absolutely, you'll have the opportunity to meet as frequently as you need to with your faculty advisor. I think some of those meetings, hopefully many of those meetings will be in-person meetings. And as Dean Horton was talking about, are using the campus. One of the ways in which I imagine this semester going is to have more opportunities for faculty and students to sit outside in a socially distanced way and talk with you about your program and your aspirations and hopes for Wellesley, your time at Wellesley. So some may be in classroom spaces. Honestly, most of them will not be probably in faculty offices because faculty offices aren't really large enough to have those conversations in the way that we need to. But there will be other spaces in all the academic buildings where you can meet. And then some, I'm sure, will also be over Zoom. And I'm sure many of you have had many conversations over Zoom these past few months and have come to appreciate ways in which it is a very effective technology for exchanging ideas. Your faculty are committed to your education in the broadest sense, to your thriving in every way, not just in your academic coursework, but also, as Dean St. John mentioned, internships, experiential learning opportunities that are outside the classroom, what your hopes are for your life throughout your years at Wellesley and beyond. That's how faculty think about their advising role. So they're looking forward to those conversations with you in the year ahead. And I think given the challenges that we're all dealing with in the world at the moment, that in a way those conversations may be more meaningful, have a longer lasting impact than ever before. So they're looking forward to meeting you.
If I could also add that one of the things that I've always thought is very special about Wellesley is the peer-to-peer engagement. And so in addition to faculty advisors, students will also have academic success coaches that live in the residence halls, that are other students that give them good advice on time management and life management around how to support your academics, and of course your first year class dean and your orientation mentor. So there'll be many people for students to speak with about how to organize themselves in the beginning.
And I just would say, in addition, we would expect also that students would still have access to career education and class dean advising. And so there's really a network of advisors that help students make plans, academic plans, as they relate maybe to their long-term plans. Provost Shannon, there's a question here for you about whether or not the tuition price will be the same if taking online classes.
The answer to that, just to be clear, is yes, the tuition will be the same. But maybe I could just contextualize that a little bit for you all. First of all, one thing I would say is that next year will be a year unlike any other. And I think I'd like to acknowledge that all that we're dealing with, all of us, the loss of normalcy, of certainties that we have always taken for granted in our lives. It's certainly the case that faculty would prefer to be teaching all of you in every single course throughout your entire 4 years at Wellesley, in person, in small groups, sitting around seminar tables, and you know, that's the ideal of the education that we offer at Wellesley. Not all of that is possible next year. We recognize that, but I want to balance that by really stressing how dedicated the faculty in the college, the whole administration, is to providing a first-rate, excellent education in every course throughout the entire year ahead. Our faculty are pouring their energy and creativity into designing outstanding courses. We are not doing what some other institutions are doing and reducing the number of credits that you can earn during the year. You will be able to earn the full number of credits that one would earn in a usual year. And as we've just been discussing in the context of advising, support, tutoring, advising, those things are all in place in the normal way. So when we put those things together, we really don't actually see a difference between the educational experience that you will be getting in different terms and with different modes of instruction.
Thank you. So I do want to acknowledge my colleagues who are assisting with reviewing the questions. Have let me know that we've received a lot of questions related to international students. So I do want to share with the group who is online today that Slater International Center, and that's an office on campus that all of our international students by now should have heard from, is in the process of gathering information on student visas, and that they hope to be able to share a frequently asked question on issues relevant to international students and their families soon, and we'll likely touch on visas and potential issues with travel. So we will have more information to provide on that topic shortly. So I have at least one more question here for Provost Shannon and Dean Horton. Maybe you could take this together, or will the college provide more detail on the Thanksgiving plan for students as they are asked to stay on campus? For the first year students, this, for instance, for some of them, this might be their first Thanksgiving outside of home.
I'll go first maybe, and then Dean Horton, I'm sure will want to chime in also. So first of all, why are we doing it? We're doing it because we really don't think it's safe for people to travel for the Thanksgiving holiday and then come back to campus. We don't think that's safe for you all, and not for the campus community or for families. So that's the reason that we're doing it. We want to see this as an opportunity, actually, to build a kind of community Thanksgiving of a kind that we have never had before. We think that actually across the whole nation, Thanksgiving is likely to be a little bit different this year. It is going to be harder for families to come together unless there is a incredible improvement in the state of the epidemic. It's going to be harder to travel in general. But what we would like to do is make this a challenge to ourselves as a community. How can we, as an entire community, students, staff, faculty, everybody, create a new kind of Thanksgiving celebration? It will be a precious time, I'm sure, for all of us. I realize that it's challenging to think about not being with your families, but I think it's something that if we do it right, you will look back on as an entirely memorable and wonderful experience.
And what I'll add, just from the student life perspective, is that we will be working with students to identify what's the most meaningful way to spend that Thanksgiving time. I know that our residence life staff, we have residence life staff that lives in the residence halls. And so I'm sure that they'll already have some thoughts and ideas of how to engage with students, but we'll also want to have student input into what that looks like so that we're able to create some space and time that makes sense for students.
Thank you, Dean Horton.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Thank you for all your wonderful questions. I just want to remind you that this recording will be posted on the website. And also, there were a few questions that we weren't able to get to today. We will continue to add to the Q&A on the website with some of those. Again, hope to continue. That will be a living document that we will continue to add to. So thank you so much. Thank you to our presenters. And most of all, thank you to our students and families for joining us today.
Thank you.